Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President-elect Donald Trump has named his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to be a senior advisor in the White House on trade in the Middle East. Kushner is married to Trump's daughter, Ivanka. The appointment may violate federal anti-nepotism laws. Kushner says he won't draw a salary from his White House position. He is a wealthy real estate investor. He says he'll sell some of his assets in efforts to avoid conflicts of interest. However, ethics lawyers say his divestment plans will not avoid these conflicts, as he says he'll simply sell his assets to his brother Joshua or a family trust controlled by his mother. Ethics lawyer Matthew Sanderson, who served as general counsel to Senator Rand Paul's presidential campaign, told the New York Times, quote, "It sounds like a shell game to me," unquote. Kushner was one of Trump's most trusted advisors during the 2016 campaign, now during the Trump transition as well. He's defended Trump's chief strategist, Stephen Bannon, amidst widespread charges of Bannon's racism and anti-Semitism. Kushner is an Orthodox Jew. A New York Times investigation into Jared Kushner's real estate dealings with a multi-billion-dollar Chinese company has sparked a new round of concern about the Trump family conflicts of interest. The New York Times reports that on November 16th, a week after Trump's election, Kushner held secret talks with Wu Xiaohui, head of the $285 billion Chinese company Anbang Insurance Group, to negotiate the joint redevelopment of 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City, one of dozens of buildings Kushner's family business owns. The Times reports at the meeting, Wu toasted to Trump and said he hoped to meet President-elect. In Washington, D.C., confirmation hearings for Donald Trump's cabinet nominees are slated to begin today. Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions will go before the Senate Judiciary Committee to be considered for confirmation as Attorney General. Trump's pick has drawn widespread outrage because of Sessions' opposition to the Voting Rights Act, support for anti-immigration legislation, and history of making racist comments, which included reportedly saying he thought the Ku Klux Klan was, quote, okay until I found out they smoked pot, unquote. Sessions has also called the American Civil Liberties Union and the NAACP un-American and communist-inspired. In 1986, Sessions was denied confirmation for a federal judgeship by a Republican-controlled Senate committee over his racist comments. Those set to testify at Sessions' hearings this week include civil rights-era icon Democratic Congressman John Lewis and Democratic Senator Cory Booker, marking the first time in Senate history a sitting senator will testify against another sitting senator for a cabinet post during the confirmation hearing. Last Tuesday, NAACP President Cornell William Brooks and 5 other civil rights leaders were arrested during a sit-in at his Alabama office, demanding Sessions withdraw his name for consideration for Attorney General. On Monday, the New York Times editorial board criticized Sessions for failing to turn over dozens, if not hundreds, of documents requested by the Senate Judiciary Committee's questionnaire. The Huffington Post reported in December Sessions' submitted questionnaire originally failed to disclose even the fact he'd been denied confirmation for the federal judgeship in 1986. And while the Office of Government Ethics has completed Sessions' ethics report, the Washington Post reports Sessions failed to disclose he owns oil interests in Alabama, a breach of the ethics requirements. As of Monday afternoon, the ethics disclosure reports for 4 other Trump nominees slated to go before the Senate this week for confirmation hearings have not been made public at all, including the ethics report for Homeland Security nominee, retired General John Kelly, whose hearing is slated to begin today at 3:30 p.m. The Office of Government Ethics has also not made public the ethics reports for Commerce Secretary nominee, billionaire Wilbur Ross, and Housing and Urban Development nominee, Dr. Ben Carson, as well as Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, whose confirmation hearing has been delayed from this Wednesday until January 17th. The Washington Post reports her family has given a total of $250,000 to 5 of the very lawmakers on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee who will be tasked with overseeing DeVos's confirmation hearing. On Monday, activists rallied in Boston, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Minneapolis, Portland, Maine, Newark, New Jersey, and more than a dozen other U.S. cities for a day of denial protests to demand the Senate refuse to confirm Trump nominees, former ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State, former Texas Governor Rick Perry for Energy, Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to head the Environmental Protection Agency, and Montana Congressmember Ryan Zinke for Department of Interior. The day of action was organized by 350.org and demanded the Senate refuse to confirm the nominees on the basis that the men have denied the human impact of climate change. In Turkey, the parliament has voted to continue debate on controversial measures that would rewrite Turkey's constitution and permit the president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, to remain in office until 2029. Erdogan's been president since 2014. Before that, he was prime minister from 2003 to 2014. The Turkish parliament vote comes amidst a massive crackdown in Turkey following this summer's failed military coup. On Friday, Turkey fired another 6,000 workers, including academics. A total of 120,000 people have been suspended or fired and 40,000 jailed over the last 6 months in Turkey. Back in the U.S., the Pentagon said Monday U.S. Special Operations troops launched a raid in eastern Syria over the weekend. Unnamed U.S. officials said the raid was carried out by the Expeditionary Task Force and was aimed at capturing top ISIS militants. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says 25 people were killed in the operation, while the website Deir al-Zur 24 quoted witnesses who said the U.S. troops landed by helicopter and then left an hour and a half later carrying prisoners and bodies. Volkswagen executive Oliver Schmidt appeared in federal court Miami Monday on charges of violating the Clean Air Act and defrauding the government. Schmidt was formerly the top emissions compliance executive in the United States. Volkswagen has admitted to rigging some 11 million vehicles worldwide, allowing them to emit up to 40 times more nitrogen oxide pollutants than standards allow. In New York State, anti-drug war activist, painter, and author Anthony Papa has received a pardon from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. In 1985, Anthony Papa agreed to deliver an envelope of cocaine in a police sting operation in return for $500. His first and only criminal offense cost him a 15-year-to-life sentence. In 1996, Papa won a sentence commutation from then-Governor George Pataki. He's believed to be the first person in New York State history to receive both a sentence commutation and a pardon. At least 8 Jewish community centers across 6 states were evacuated Monday after being targeted with bomb threats. Authorities say it's not clear whether the threats were linked. The threats led to the frantic evacuation of children from 3 Jewish community centers in Florida, as well as evacuations of JCCs in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Tennessee, and South Carolina. And the United States and Cuba have signed an agreement to work together to prevent, contain, and clean up oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico. The accord comes as negotiators on both sides are rushing to sign a half-dozen agreements before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. This is Cuban Deputy Transportation Minister Eduardo Rodriguez Davila.
The signed agreement will lead to the preparation of the coordination plan for the actions of prevention, preparation, and response to events of contamination by spills of hydrocarbons and other damaging and potentially dangerous substances taking place in the geographic zone described.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.